Well, we're really
Okay.
pleased to have Brent Zern. He's the Assistant Director of Regulatory Compliance and Consent Decree of DeKalb County's Department of Watershed Management. He's been environmental and professional for 30 plus years. I'll let him talk a little bit more about himself, but take it away, Brent.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan, and thanks everybody for attending today. I appreciate you having me. So I've been with DeKalb County now for just over 2 years. I was originally hired on as the Assistant Director of just regulatory compliance. So, my role was to make sure that all of the potable water was leaving the treatment plant as clean as it needs to be for consumption purposes, and then all of the wastewater that was treated at the treatment plants went back into the river as clean as it needed to be according with Georgia state regulations. Since that time, I guess I must have been doing a good job because they also now gave me the consent decree program, which is much more onerous. I basically doubled my staff but tripled my headaches. It's a much more political position. I'm very much closer to our county CEO now. And you can imagine what some of the demands are on that. But it's been a fun ride, and I've learned a lot. I continue to learn. And today I want to share with you some of the strategies that the county uses to control our sewer backups and spills. So that's the situation today. And I think, as Dan mentioned, we're going to keep this interactive. So if you have any questions at any point, please don't feel like you need to wait until the end. Just go ahead and chime in. And with that, I will get started. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about the consent decree because I'm sure many of you are aware of similar legal documents that exist with other jurisdictions. Each one is unique to that jurisdiction, but I do want to give you a little bit of history of how we got to where we are, to the point where we actually were forced under a consent decree by US EPA. So basically, as you can see on the screen here, it had to do with neglect of our infrastructure, our existing infrastructure. We had a very, very old system. Some of the pipes, especially the sewer pipes, were upwards of 100 years old, had not been maintained. We did not have a capital improvement process, which is necessary for the maintenance and replacement of those old pipes. We didn't have appropriate oversight of anything we were doing. And so, of course, that spilled over into this maintenance and repair program. And there was a lot of political interference. DeKalb, in the not too distant past, had a lot of corruption going on. I'll just leave it at that. And because of that, there were all kinds of politics flying back and forth, which, as you know, can kill something pretty fast. So here's just a quick timeline. DeKalb County was formed in 1822, and there was a rapid growth from the 40s into the 70s, which caused the Watershed Management Department, which is my department, to be created to provide centralized water and sewer service. Well, at that point, the county really began to grow. And because of that, and the fact that we were entering a period of neglect and mismanagement, We weren't able to keep up with not only the demand, but as I mentioned earlier, we certainly were not paying attention to the maintenance and repair. So those things combined caused us to have to enter into a consent decree with the US EPA in 2011. So what is this consent decree I keep talking about? Well, because of continuous sanitary sewer overflows, otherwise known as SSOs, were occurring within the county, EPA did an audit of our entire water and wastewater system. And they determined, as I mentioned, that we just had no clue, and basically federal oversight was warranted. So we entered into the consent decree, the original consent decree, in 2011, and basically through a bunch of different programs and requirements, we were ordered to reduce our SSOs in order to comply with federal laws. So originally, we had a deadline of 2020. Well, as we were trying to get up to speed and honestly trying to do the right thing, unfortunately, we missed that deadline. So we went back to EPA, we negotiated a modification that included an extension of up until 2027 to get all of the work done that we needed to. Unfortunately, because we had to ask for a modification, there are some much more rigorous requirements, especially regarding schedule of priority areas and reporting requirements. So this is basically, in a nutshell, what we're trying to accomplish. A, we need to reduce our sewer system overflows. That, combined with improved customer service to our ratepayers, will hopefully equal by 2027, if not before, an upgrade for our communities for future generations. Basically, we are learning to become a more sustainable organization. All right, so that's pretty much the review of the consent decree, and I didn't really want to bore you guys with too many of the details on that, which, believe me, I could go on for days. But I wanted to get into some things that I think you probably are a little bit more interested in, and that is some of the innovative strategies that we've used on some of our repair projects. So this first one is Eagles Beak Circle, and there was a spill that occurred in August 2017 from a tree whose roots had punched into a 54-inch sewer main. And that wasn't necessarily the cause of the spill at that time, but unfortunately that tree fell, basically uprooting the 54-inch main and allowing for a lot of sewage to leak out. So it was a very large repair that, of course, we needed to address in a very short period of time. It was also in a remote area, and it wasn't identified by a resident, which so often happens in our county, but it was identified by a county staff person who was doing some stream sampling and noted some very high fecal counts downstream of where he was sampling. So as a result, county staff walked the creek until they saw the broken crossing. And so my takeaways, because I know there's a lot of words up on the screen, if you want to focus on the bold italicized statements, those are the biggest takeaways of this story. So without having done this walk, because it was in such a remote area, it could have continued for much longer than it did without being discovered. So we were able to quickly mobilize a contractor. The construction was completed in 4 months, and that included construction of a new 54-inch and an additional 21-inch bypass with several new manholes, all engineered. The whole system was re-engineered to help protect from future SSOs. And basically it was innovative in the fact that we had an extremely coordinated teamwork that occurred. And as I mentioned to you, the county did not have that in the past. So this project back in 2017 was an early example of how far we've come. And I think the innovative takeaway here is that we've learned to truly partner, not just within our department, but also with external stakeholders. And that includes anybody from residents, regulators, other incorporated cities within unincorporated DeKalb County, and definitely county administration and procurement, which, as I mentioned, had been lacking in the past.
So, Brent, before you move on, is that a picture of it?
Yes.
So, again, I'm a novice, and so I have a question. So, it was discovered by routine sampling downstream. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yes. So we have
is that something you do regular? Is that, and again, is that regulated to do that? Is that an expectation? And or why do you do that? And what's your process to do that sampling?
Yeah. So it is a requirement. It's a requirement of the state of Georgia. And one of the plans the state requires of us to have, unrelated to the consent decree, is what is known as a watershed protection plan. And some of that entails this sampling that was going on. There are several permanent sample locations throughout the county that were identified as potentially high contaminant sites. And so those locations were agreed upon between the county and the state that they would be continually monitored, and that is on a monthly basis. And so that flow monitoring team just happened to be out at one of their sites, and in the samples, they found these high fecal counts that they had not seen at this location before. So that caused them to get suspicious, to do a little sleuthing on their own, to walk upstream to see if they could determine if there was indeed a spill. And sure enough, they came across this broken pipe.
Is that what the sampling was designed to do?
Yes, in part. I would not say that's the specific purpose, but it is definitely a side benefit. And it just goes to show you how hand in hand all of these different programs work together. Because the name of the game, and this goes top to bottom within the county, it doesn't matter what department you are in, our CEO expects that each of us will do our share of visual monitoring. Now, that's not to say that we're expected to go out on the weekends and walk the streams or anything, but if we see an issue, we are to report it. If through other aspects of our day-to-day job, we see something suspicious, such as these high fecal counts, we are expected to investigate and report. So it really takes a village to prevent these overflows. And I'm really proud of the way the county has responded. I used to be on the other side of the fence. I worked at Emory University. I was the campus environmental engineer there, and of course, the campus was regulated by DeKalb County. When I was there, working with DeKalb County was very frustrating because of the issues I mentioned previously. Since I've come on with the county 2 years ago, I just can't believe the remarkable improvement that I walked into and was able to be a part of. And so I really feel proud of, between the time I was at Emory until I started with the county, really how much they've gotten their act together.
And you give credit to the leadership in committing to resolve these issues. Is that the change, or what's the change?
Yep, that was the big push, and that's where it needed to come from. Because our CEO, he controls the purse strings. And if we did not have his support, we wouldn't be where we are now. Even our Department of Watershed director, who reports directly to the CEO, is still very limited on his influence, which seems counterintuitive to me. But as any of you know who have worked with governmental agencies, there's definitely a hierarchy that needs to be followed. And so yes, I mean, all the credit needs to start at the top with the CEO.
Very good. Go ahead. I'm not going to ask any questions.
Okay. So I do have a few pictures just so you can see what we were dealing with. So here's a picture of that 15-inch tree that fell, uprooting the 54-inch sewer main along with it. And so this is the temporary bypass that needed to be created, because obviously there was still sewage coming down through that line. So in order to make the repair, we have to install what is known as a bypass to keep that system operational and allow the flow to continue down to the treatment facilities. So it's quite a laborious process, because not only do we need the bypass, but then we need to be able to isolate the flows, remove the damaged pipe, install the new system, and do this, basically in a very coordinated but simultaneous schedule. So to get all of this done, especially for a 54-inch main within 4 months, is pretty impressive. So here's what the final repair looked like. And you can see the additional green manholes that were installed. We added 4 additional. You can see the new creek crossing here. You can see some of the bank stabilization that was done because areas of that creek were severely eroded, the banks. You can see the other restoration that happened. As I said, this was a fairly remote area, and what you're seeing now has all been cleared. It had all been cleared in order to perform this project. And so I think the restoration looks terrific. They've opened it up. It'll be easier to inspect and maintain. I'm particularly impressed. I love these little almost decorative fences they put at either side of that stream crossing, just to prevent kids and vandals from, not walking across the pipe. So I think all in all, it was a great project and turned out really well. All right, the next project I'd like to talk about is at Glen Lake Park. So this spill occurred in a highly used city park, the city being the city of Decatur, Georgia, and it was caused by a contractor error. They messed up. They caused a breach in the pipe. However, they were aware of this very unique technology called infrastructure mainline point repair system. All right, and so what the main benefits of this are is that it's a no-dig solution. Okay, so that right there is going to make things a lot quicker and a lot cheaper, and it helps, more importantly, minimize service interruption. So there's no broken pipe removal. What they do is they have a patented, easy-to-wrap sewn fiberglass liner that is inserted into the damaged pipe, is heated, and when that happens, the fiberglass expands and it adheres to the interior of the existing pipe. And they have all different kinds to determine what is needed to make sure they're not going to restrict flow within the existing pipe. So it's pretty unique. I actually went out to this location to witness the repair. I was pretty fascinated by it. It has a 100-year warranty, and because it adheres to and solidifies inside the existing pipe, one of the best benefits for us, besides the repair, obviously, is that this helps prevent infiltration and inflow, which is a very, very sticky subject, particularly with EPA. For those of you who may not be familiar with infiltration and inflow, and we call it for short I&I, that's basically when groundwater or stormwater infiltrates into our sanitary sewer system. So this is clean water that is getting mixed in with dirty water. And first of all, we're cleaning more water than we need to. If we could keep that clean water out, and not to mention when additional water gets into our system that wasn't designed to be there, that eats into our capacity. And as you know, everybody, especially the politicians, they want to promote development within their county, particularly core areas. And if the capacity within the existing sanitary system is getting chewed up by this I&I flow, then sometimes we have to stop a developer and say, look, we just don't have capacity for the additional sewer you want to put into our system. There's other reasons why that can be, but I&I is a big part of it. So any repair that we can do to keep I&I out of our system is always a big, big bonus. So as I mentioned, this is a cured in place liner, and it's from the manufacturer's information, it is impregnated with a thermosetting epoxy resin. That is basically put into a sleeve carrier, so it's cooled through the pipe, and I have pictures of this, and inserted into the pipeline. When I said it adheres to the inside of the pipe, that means there's no what we call annular space. All right, and so that's very important, because if we have annular space between the existing pipe and whatever we're using to line it, that's another pathway for water that shouldn't be in the system to make its way through the system. Again, eating into our sewer capacity. So before a repair is made using this technology, we have to do what is called a closed caption TV inspection, CCTV. The closed caption, as you can see on the screen, are these little notes. They tell us the distance the camera is from the upstream manhole to the downstream manhole. As you can see, it provides a little video confirming indeed that there is a defect to the pipe, which you can see at the top of the pipeway there. So we go in first, we do a CCTV inspection to confirm the defect, and then if we do confirm a defect, then we go ahead and proceed with the lining. So here you can see, this is the fiberglass epoxy wrap that gets inserted into the pipe. So it's basically just like a roll of dough, almost, I would call it. You can see the carrier on the front there, that pointy little metal thing, to use a technical term. And what happens is it gets inserted into the upstream manhole, and you can see the rope lying in the background. It gets pulled through the length of the pipe, and then once it has reached its full length, this epoxy is heated, and then that's when the dough starts to expand. And so this wrapped epoxy expands, and that's how it gets expanded. And obviously it goes all the way to the interior wall of the pipe, and then it cures. They have different strategies for curing this. You can do a cold cure, a hot cure. You can do a winter, what they call seasonal cures. So there's different temperatures you do and different lengths of curation period, depending on when the repair is happening, summer or winter. It's a pretty cool process. Obviously I'm not an expert in it, but I was really glad I got to witness it. And it works. It has worked terrific. We have since authorized its use on several other point repair projects, and I would highly recommend, if you have any clients or other individuals, that do this sort of work or that need sewer repair services, to look at this technology. I would highly recommend it. From a risk perspective, I think the risk is very low. And of course, that's always what we want.
So Brent, how was the issue identified in this particular situation?
Well, so I mentioned it was contractor error. The contractor, when they made their mistake, they noticed that they had created a spill. So okay. there was a release into an adjacent creek. So we had basically three categories of spills, what we call overflows. An overflow itself is just when sewage comes out of the manhole or comes out of a compromised pipe, but doesn't reach a stream or a waterway. All right, so that's an overflow. A spill is when that happens and the sewage does reach a waterway. And then we have a third category known as building backups. And you can imagine what that is. Sometimes we will have spills that don't reach the external environment, but back up in the system, oftentimes discharging into a residence, into a building basement. And, you can imagine when those things happen, our customers are extremely upset. And it can get, pretty gross, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And we, again, our members suffer that specific issue a lot. Do you have a system in place to help? And what's typically the root cause of that issue, that sewer backup into buildings? And then what do you have a process in place to be able to identify those particular issues?
Well, again, remember how intertwined all of this is. So to answer your first question, most often than not, building backups occur because of private sewer lateral issues. So either the lateral is broken, so the sewage is not able to reach the county system, which the county takes responsibility for the sewage when it reaches a resident's property line. So anything from the property line back to the home is the homeowner's responsibility. And typically there will be a clean out there in order to be able to maintain the lateral. And so sometimes that's a culprit because the caps on the cleanouts are missing. And so then you get into, again, going back to inflow and infiltration, the I&I situation, you can have rainwater enter the system, which combined with the additional flow from the home can back it up instead of allowing it to gravity flow into the county system, especially if the lateral that would convey that waste is broken. So that's usually the main culprit. And if it is on the resident's side, typically they are responsible for the repair of the lateral or the clean out or the combination thereof. However, the county still feels the responsibility to do the cleanup within their residence or business. So we flip that bill. However, it's only under the condition that the homeowner or business repair the situation and have it documented by a certified plumber.
But again, to your point, because it's on private property, there's not any way you can go out and systematically identify those issues, or is there?
Typically, no. Right now, we are doing a clean out cap replacement project, and that's mainly to minimize I&I. So we have inspectors that go out to properties, especially older properties, try to identify the clean out, make sure there is a cap on it. If not, we will place a cap on it. But that's the extent to which we get involved on the private side of things.
And I saw that you had the camera down there to assess the damage of this particular incident. Do you have a process in place to use that camera to look through your systems at any regularity, or how is that used?
Oh yeah, we have, and this is all part of a consent decree requirement. We now have a regular sewer cleaning schedule that we have to adhere to. and part of that includes doing the CCTV work. So at least EPA provided a little bit of common sense on this one, because they said, just like if you're doing a repair, hey, run the CCTV first to make sure there really is a repair needed. So similarly with the regular cleaning schedule, they said, okay, run the CCTV first to make sure the pipe needs to be cleaned. Because some of these pipes fill up with sediment and trash a lot quicker than others. So there's no sense in cleaning a pipe that doesn't need it, especially when there are others that need it more often. So this really helps us save on resources and prioritize the areas that we clean more often than not.
How are those cleaned?
They are basically vac jetted, and sometimes, so that's obviously forcing the water downstream. But sometimes, depending on what is accumulated within the system, they also can be vacuumed. So it's a combination of those two things.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Yep, you bet. Thanks for the questions. All right, so we're getting close to the end here. One of the other strategies, which isn't particularly innovative, but it is so super important, I cannot stress this enough, is the communications strategy that we have to have with the public. So obviously there's a lot going on with the consent decree requirements, but not just repairs, of course, not just cleanings, but there are capital improvement projects going on, which is basically yanking out this old pipe, replacing it with new and bigger pipe. So there's a lot of balls in the air all at once, and the community needs to be kept in the know, especially as it's going to impact their property. And you can imagine, and that's only fair. And we have really, really put together a strong public relations team within Watershed, because there are so many specific programs within Watershed related to the consent decree. So, of course, we do regular mailings. We use door hangers to say, hey, guys, this is an issue. We're coming through your property. Here's sometimes 2-week notice just to put you on notice. And then certainly we follow back up 48 hours to 72 hours in advance of when we will actually be there. We do email blasts, Twitter, social media, websites. I mean, you name it, and we are on it in an attempt to keep our residents apprised every step of the way. And we use all these different methods of communication because, like anywhere, there's an older population here. They might not be tech savvy, so they're not going to think to hop onto a website or Twitter to get this information. So sometimes the good old-fashioned letter or physical notification at your residence is the way to go. So we found that there's a variety of different methods that can and should be employed depending on your customer base. So, given everything that's been going on, I'm hoping you're wondering how we're doing. So, since we started with the consent decree, what have been the impacts of all of our efforts? And so I put together a few stats here that I want to share with you. This one is related in particular to grease in the system. Some of you may be familiar with the acronym FOG, F-O-G. That stands for fats, oils, and grease. And this is a huge issue in any wastewater collection system. Food service establishments, they are required to have grease traps. We do regular education with the general public, the residential public, to say, hey guys, please don't pour your cooking grease down the drain. You know, throw it in an old mayonnaise jar. Keep it in the back of your fridge. When it fills up, it's solidified because it's been in the refrigerator, and toss it in the trash. You know, basically the only thing we want to go into our system is, and pardon my French, I guess, is pee, poop, and toilet paper. That is it. Flushable wipes? Absolutely not. They are not flushable. They're flushable to go down your toilet, but guess what? Once they get into our system, combined with all the other stuff that goes down there that shouldn't, they form major clogs. And that is a source of these overflows. So we go through a tremendous educational effort to try to let everybody know that fats, oils, and greases really need to be kept out of our system. So through these efforts, you can see from 2012 through last year, a very healthy decline in the number of SSOs caused by fog. And I'm very proud to say that DeKalb County is the only jurisdiction in the country to date that has a multifamily housing fog ordinance. And so what this is that we know where there are repeat SSO sites. Sometimes they are located just downstream of a very large multifamily housing complex, whether that be condos, rentals, it doesn't matter. Where you have high density residential, if you can identify repeat SSOs caused by grease, then that housing entity are put into our multifamily housing program, which has different tiers associated with it. So if there's another overflow within a certain amount of time after you enter the system, then you are given a warning. And then there is a step 2, and I can't remember exactly what the fines are. But the third and final is that if there are additional repeated SSOs, that residential complex will be required to install their own pretreatment system. So basically, just like with a restaurant, they will be required to install some sort of a grease trap and have that trap maintained. And I think this is an amazing ordinance that got passed. And this was passed by our Board of Commissioners right when I came on. So I can't take any credit for helping implement it, but it is very unique and it's been very successful. Right now, we only have about 8 locations within the program, but we're sure there will be more, and we are already seeing some effectiveness. So there are very innovative policies that can be implemented, not just physical engineering fixes, but policy, code. There are different ways to think about things that can make a huge impact. Similarly, you can see some of the SSOs caused by structural issues. Very, very big improvement from 2012. And the bottom graph in orange there shows the number of structural SSOs or SSOs caused by structural issues, the orange bar, decreasing significantly. And then in 2018, we had the first of our rehabilitation contractors. So these are the guys that are going in doing the big projects, the pipe replacement projects. You can see as those projects ramped up and the linear footage of pipe that got replaced increased, there's a direct correlation to the decrease in the structural SSOs, which is to be expected, because if we're increasing capacity, we're removing damaged pipe, then this is the result we would expect to see. And sure enough, we are. And so, we're very happy about that, of course. All right, so that's really all I had for you guys. Feel free if you have any final questions. I'd be happy to entertain them now.
Does anybody have any questions they want to ask Brent? Anybody have any thoughts? Are you guys awake out there?
Yes, I know. This is riveting stuff. I know.
I thought it was great. You did a great job. It was a great profile of what you're doing and some of the things that you're doing. Again, I have no level of expertise, or even I'm below a beginner in this, but I really appreciated your time. We do have, again, as I said within the presentation, our members continue to have issues with sewer backups and things to that effect. So hopefully they can learn from some of your best practices and implement those. I have a question here. Wipes are being sold as flushable. Is one brand any better than the other?
Very good question. And I just read an article. Believe it or not, there is an association, a trade association out there that studies these different wipes. And there is it's one of the biggies. I can't remember exactly who the manufacturer is, but allegedly, and I can send you a link, Dan, for you to distribute. There is one brand where the wipes decompose allegedly quicker than all of the other brands that are out there. And I apologize, I can't remember.
Yeah, if you could send that, I'll send that one. I'll send out your presentation later, and if you could provide that to them, I'll send that information. That would be great. Here's another question. I'm on the DeKalb website looking for ordinance for multifamily fog requirements. Is the ordinance on Municode?
It should be, because anytime any ordinance like that needs to be approved by our Board of Commissioners, then does officially get written into Municode. So I have not personally seen it there, but again, I can forward a link to that as well.
Yeah, that would be great, because somebody else said, can we get a copy of the ordinance you have? And so if you could send me a link, that would be great. What do you convey in your fog multifamily workshop?
So we've only had one so far, because this ordinance was just passed and then the pandemic hit. But I did not attend this, unfortunately, but my FOG staff, of course, did. It was held with the, I believe it's called the Greater Atlanta Apartment Association or something like that. It's some trade organization that I guess promotes rental properties. We figured they would be the best to team with for this very first public information session. I was told it was very well received. I do not know what other follow-up has come from that. But once we are all able to meet in person again and willing to do so, we definitely plan to restart all of those workshops. So we have one not just with fog residential, but we have general fog, basically aimed at the restaurants. We have an IPP workshop. So IPP is Industrial Pretreatment Program. And so that's mainly aimed at industries. And then we have backflow workshops. And that's aimed at developers, some residential, because here in DeKalb, irrigation systems are required to have backflow preventers, residential irrigation. So there's definitely some customer-based residential participation.
Do you have a team of folks that are out there evaluating those ordinances or the compliance with those ordinances?
Yeah, so as I mentioned when we started this discussion, my original hire with the county was over the regulatory compliance division. And so that is comprised of the 3 programs that I just mentioned, in addition to the labs that do the testing of the water to ensure cleanliness. And so within IPP, fog, and backflow, I've got a big team of inspectors. And that's basically what they do, is they go out to these sites. They do regular inspections. It depends on the program, how often that is. They do testing to ensure compliance with their permits. It's a great team. I was very fortunate to have inherited them from my predecessor, who really put together a very strong and organized team, and they're a well-oiled machine at this point. So it's allowed me to focus my time on the consent decree side now. So
very good. Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, thank you so very, very much, Brent. I wish you success and happiness in your role. If you can forward me those items that we had kind of discussed, that would be great. I will be sending out the PowerPoint presentation along with a few other things. So thank you so much to both Brent and to the attendees. And I will let you go.
All right, Dan, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for hopping on today. Please, the county is here. Your customers are our customers, particularly if they are in our jurisdiction. But even if they're not, we all are in this together and we all learn from each other. And feel free to reach out to me at any time with any other specific questions or, help you may need.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.